Hi, this is Jean-Pierre from Studio JPEG. In this video, we'll be doing a review of these macro extension tubes by Neewer. And this is the same brand that I bought one of their very cheap lavalier microphones a while back. And in general, they make very affordable photography and videography equipment. So if you're looking for something, it's definitely a good place to start with. And all this really is a piece of metal or aluminum, and there's some connectors here so that you can do your autofocus and image stabilizer and all that and pass through from the lens to the camera. But other than that, this is just air. So really, this is a case where I think you can go with a cheap version, and it doesn't really matter what brand of air that you're using in your camera. And the way this works is if I were to take a picture of, let's say, one of these bolts over here, and this is with my 6D full frame camera and a 50mm 1.8 lens. Really, this is about the distance that I have to be. If I go like that, yeah, it'd be further. So yeah, this is the closest focusing distance that I would have to be to take a picture of the bolt over here. So it's about a foot away. And so you're not going to get a full one-to-one macro shot with this. So what the extension tubes do is they let you to get much closer to your subject that you're photographing. And it doesn't matter which order that you put these in. So this is a 31mm here, and a 21mm, and finally a 13mm. And you can use some of them, all of them, and you can switch the order. It doesn't really matter. And it will move the connector all the way to the camera, so the camera can control your lens just as if it were connected directly. And now I can go at this distance here and take a nice picture of that bolt, and the bolt will fill the frame with the camera. So it's a very inexpensive way to get into macro photography. Now the big difference between this and a full-on macro lens is if I go now to infinity focus, what it does is I can now go all the way till this distance instead to get a picture of this, and anything further than that I will not be able to focus on it. So if I see something in a tree over there, then I'm just going to get a very blurry image that is completely unusable. Whereas if I had a macro lens, then you can get really close by, and most macro lenses also let you do infinity focus, so you can use it as a portrait lens or anything like that. Versus using these macro tubes, then you're only able to take pictures at very, very close up. But as you can see, you can very quickly take them on and off. And over here I have my very old trusty 18 to 55mm kit lens. And this is an EFS lens, so it's made only for crop factor cameras. And the 6D is a full frame camera, so it's something that normally you wouldn't be able to connect together, mostly because this part protrudes out a little bit and the mirror of the 6D is closer. So even if the mount allowed it to, you wouldn't want it. But because the extension tube brings out the lens further away from the camera, then there's no danger of mechanically breaking the mirror by using this, and you can actually use it. So using the 31mm lens, if I were to take a picture of this again, then I could go at this distance here and I would get a very nice in focus image of this. So not all crop factor lenses will let you fill the frame with a macro tube. This one just happens to do in the case of this camera and lens combination, but sometimes you might have a little bit of the rounded corners. But in this case, I'm not seeing that issue happening here. So if you're looking to get into some macro photography for the very small investment, so it's about $50 for a set of tubes. And again, you can use different tubes depending on how much of a zoom in that you want to do. And their rule of thumb is if you have a 50mm lens and you want to have a 1-to-1 macro zoom, you're going to have 50mm of macro tubes to the end of it. And if you want to zoom in even more, so if I put the 51 plus 13 plus the 31 here, all of them together will let me zoom in even bigger than 1:1. And what 1:1 means is that the picture of the object that you're taking, when you look at the sensor itself, it will fill the sensor the same size as the actual image is. But when you use a digital camera with over 20 megapixels, and some of the modern cameras might even go in 40 megapixels or more nowadays, that will let you zoom in even further than 1:1 really once you bring it into the computer. But what 1:1 means is just that it's going to fill the frame completely with the object that you're trying to take a picture of. So this is great if you're doing insect photography or something like that. In my case, I use it a lot for my AeroGarden videos. So if you take a look at some of these, you'll see a lot of macro shots that I took in those. And one thing to take in note is the closer to the object you are, the depth of field becomes very, very, very shallow. So even if you boost your aperture and you go maybe f18, f20, f40 in some lenses, you're still going to have a very small depth of field, which means that a part of the image is going to be in focus, but things that are further or closer away will not be. And in that case, what people tend to do is to do focus stacking. So you're going to take multiple pictures with the focusing point at different distances, and then in a post-processing software, you're going to get your whole object in focus. But that does take a lot of work. And also when you're taking images, don't forget that your camera does do a shadow, as you can see here. So if I were to take a picture in that angle here, you can see that the camera is doing a shadow on the table. So you have to be mindful of that and really trying to bring the most light that you can, because you're going to need that aperture. Usually I try to go at least at f16 or even a smaller aperture than that, f20 if you can. But if you're trying to do at f2.8 because you don't have a lot of light, or in this case at f1.8 with this lens, you're really just going to have maybe a sliver of a millimeter, not even a full millimeter in focus. So something to watch out for. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please click like, subscribe, and share with a friend. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them in the box below. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.